Most people are not only suffering because they have problems, they are suffering because somewhere along the way they were taught that having problems means something has gone wrong with them. So when life becomes difficult, they do not simply say, "This is difficult." They say, "Why is this happening to me? Why am I behind? Why am I not healed yet? Why can't I finally get to the part of life where everything is easy?" That second layer is where the realization begins. The problem is already asking for energy, but then the mind adds shame, panic, comparison, and spiritual guilt. It whispers, "If I were stronger, wiser, more aligned, or more loved by God, I would not be dealing with this." That is a lie. A meaningful life is not a life without problems. A meaningful life is a life where you learn how to meet problems without losing yourself inside them. A sea without waves is no sea at all. A life without struggle is not peace. It is a fantasy created by the part of you that is tired, scared, and desperate for control. Look at anything that is alive. A body needs food, sleep, movement, repair, and attention. A relationship needs honesty, forgiveness, boundaries, and difficult conversations. A business needs maintenance, correction, courage, and discipline. A spiritual life needs humility, silence, surrender, and the willingness to see what the ego hides. Nothing real survives without maintenance. So why do we treat maintenance as proof of failure? Your body needing rest does not mean your body is broken. Your relationship needing communication does not mean your love has failed. Your mind needing training does not mean you are weak. It means you are participating in reality. The dance changes rhythm. The ego wants a finished life. It wants a final arrival point where nothing interrupts its plans or asks it to grow. The ego does not really want peace. It wants control that feels like peace. And control is fragile because life is not built around our private schedules. This is why some people come to spirituality looking for freedom, but what they secretly want is certainty. They want meditation to remove every trigger. They want prayer to prevent every loss. They want awakening to make them untouchable. But awakening is not becoming untouchable. Awakening is becoming honest. Peace is not when life finally stops moving. Peace is when you stop drowning every time it does. Now, acceptance does not mean you become passive. It does not mean you tolerate abuse, ignore injustice, avoid responsibility, or pretend pain is beautiful when it is not. Some problems require boundaries. Some require therapy. Some require leaving. Some require speaking up, medical care, legal help, financial discipline, or a completely different environment. Acceptance simply means you stop arguing with the fact that reality is already here. If the house is on fire, acceptance does not mean sitting there saying, "I am trusting the universe." No, that is not spiritual. That is foolish. Acceptance says, "The house is on fire. Now you can move. Now you can call for help. Now you can act." Acceptance gives your energy back. Most people are not exhausted only because life is hard. They are exhausted because they are fighting the fact that life is hard. They are in a silent argument with reality every day. This should not be happening. I should be further. This should not be taking so long. But every moment you spend arguing with what is already here, you lose the power to respond to what is here. And response is where creation begins. Reaction is what happens when the wound grabs the steering wheel. Response is what happens when awareness returns to the room. Many people are trying to become invincible, but invincibility is a fantasy. Responsiveness is a skill. You may still feel fear, anger, grief, or uncertainty, but fear does not have to become your leader. Anger does not have to become your mouth. Grief does not have to convince you that love was a mistake. Uncertainty does not have to make you betray your values. That is freedom, not a life with no problems. A self that does not disappear every time problem arrives. The wisdom traditions point to the same truth from different doorways. Life was never promised to be convenient, and difficulty is not evidence that you are abundant. Sometimes difficulty means you are being asked to mature. Not punished, not ruined, not rejected, matured. A financial problem may be asking for honesty and discipline. A relationship problem may be asking for love without self-betrayal. A business problem may be asking whether your dream has enough structure to survive reality. A spiritual problem may be asking whether you want truth or only comfort dressed in sacred language. This does not mean every problem is secretly good. Some problems are unfair. Some are tragic. Some come from cruelty, neglect, injustice, or systems that must change. We do not need to romanticize pain in order to become wise. But even when a situation is not good, denial will not save you from it. Your power begins when you can say, "This is what is happening. This is what I feel. This is what I can influence. This is the next honest step." That one sentence can bring a person back from chaos. Because most overwhelm comes from trying to solve your entire life at once. You look at one bill and suddenly your mind predicts lifelong failure. You have one tense conversation and suddenly the mind says nobody ever loved you properly. You make one mistake and suddenly fear turns into a biography. I ruined everything. No, that is fear writing fiction. Bring it back to the facts. What is actually happening? What am I feeling? What story am I adding? What is the next honest action? Not the perfect action, the next honest action. Make the call, drink the water, have the conversation, set the boundary, ask for help, book appointment, turn off the screen, pray with sincerity, meditate when you have to, breathe slowly enough for your body to realize it is safe in this moment. Small, honest actions rebuild spiritual authority. And please hear this clearly. Your body is part of your spiritual life. You cannot ignore sleep, food, breath, movement, sunlight, and safe connection, then wonder why your mind feels like a battlefield. Sometimes the most sacred thing you can do is not decode the universe. Sometimes it is to unclench your jaw, put both feet on the ground, exhale longer, and return to the present moment. A steadier body gives wisdom more room to speak. This is where being a creator gets misunderstood. Some people hear, "You are a creator," and think it means I should be able to control everything. No, that is ego wearing spiritual clothing. Being a creator does not mean you can control every wave. It means you are responsible for how you meet the wave. You may not control the storm, the delay, or who leaves, but you can choose honesty, effort, discipline, breath, boundaries, forgiveness, and the next act of courage. That is not small. That is everything. One conscious response can change the direction of a life. One honest conversation can save a relationship. One disciplined habit can rebuild a future. Creation is not logic. Creation is what happens when love becomes action inside reality. So maybe the question is not, how do I get rid of every difficulty? Maybe the question is, who am I becoming in the way I meet difficulty? Your problems will change over time. Some will resolve, some will return, some will teach you quickly, some will take years. But if you keep practicing honesty, presence, responsibility, and compassion, you will notice something powerful. The outside world may still be unfinished, but you are no longer waiting for everything to be finished before you live. You stop waiting for life to calm down before you allow yourself to be at peace. You stop waiting for proof before you practice faith. You stop waiting for approval before you respect yourself. You stop waiting for life to become easy before you choose freedom. Because life was never asking you to become untouched. It was asking you to become awake. Awake enough to tell the truth. Awake enough to act with love. Awake enough to stop confusing discomfort with danger. Awake enough to stop calling yourself broken because something in your life needs attention. So when the next problem appears, do not turn it into a verdict against your life. Pause. Name what is real. Separate the fact from the fear story. Care for your nervous system. Ask what the moment requires. Take the next honest step. And remember this. Problems are not interruptions to your life. They are part of the shape of your life. They are the waves in the sea. The pressure that reveals what is real. The teacher you did not invite, but may still learn from. There will always be something. A question, a delay, a fear, a responsibility, a conversation, a choice, a wave. But there can also be peace inside it. Not perfect peace, not permanent bliss, not a fake spiritual smile. Real peace. The kind that says, this is hard, and I am still here. This is uncertain, and I can still take one step. This hurts, and I do not have to hate myself for hurting. A sea without waves is no sea at all. And a soul without challenge never discovers its depth. So the next time life rises against your plans, do not ask only, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this asking me to say? Ask, what is mine to do now? Ask, who am I becoming in the way I meet this? Maybe the point was never to control the whole dance. Maybe the point was to become present enough to move with it. Maybe peace was never about needing the sea to be still. Maybe peace begins when you finally trust that you can swim. Remember who you are. Tell the truth. Create from love and awareness. And meet the wave. Not because life became smooth, but because you became awake enough to stop running from the life that is actually here.